This is Walt Disney World Today. Give us 5 minutes and we'll give you the world.
It's Friday, January 5th, 2006, and this is episode 201 of Walt Disney World Today. I'm Matt Hodgeberg from MGMstudios.org. On the show today is Len Testa, co-author of the unofficial guide to Walt Disney World. Welcome, Len.
L'chaim, Matt. How are you?
To life.
To life, exactly.
Also in the
house.
Oh.
In his house.
Newell, can we start over?
Yes,
Mike
we
Newell
can.
of Basketball Radio.
Yes,
Welcome,
we could start it over anytime you want.
But why? We've gone this far.
And also on today's show is Annette Owens of MEI Mouse Fan Travel. Welcome back, Annette.
Hi, thanks for having me again.
As long as you can put up with us, we'll have you.
So far, so good.
On today's show, we're actually using a show suggestion from one of our listeners. It comes from Clark, who wrote, "As a faithful Walt Disney World Today listener, I'm reminded now and then that the Walt Disney World subculture is populated by extraordinarily talented people. I think it would be interesting to have the panel discuss what you think makes us the way we are. Was it childhood trauma? Is it a need to escape reality? Or could it have been that we were blessed with the ability to recognize genius and derive never-ending pleasures from our interactions?" That's an interesting story. I mean, how we got where we are right now.
Crazy.
I mean, what was it for everyone? I mean, we'll start with Annette. Annette, were you brainwashed as a kid, or is this an adult thing that occurred?
My parents took me camping, of all things, to Disney World the first time we went in the 70s.
Wow.
And I hate camping. Anybody that knows me knows that's not me. But that was the only trip we went camping on I enjoyed. But it was the family time together, because I grew up with three kids in the family. But, the funny thing is, I'm now the only one in the family that is a Disney nut. Everybody else thinks I'm crazy, because why would you go to Disney 3-4 times a year? You could go to the beach 3 or 4 times a year. That's the mentality of my family.
I know. If for those people who either weren't at Disney Meets or didn't hear Mike Scopa's speech, Newell, I'm sure you remember this. When he was talking about, he made a kind of a keynote speech at Disney Meets in July, and he said, there are people who go to you and be like, "Weren't you just there?" Why?
Yes,
were you...
I was.
Yes, I was.
And I'm
Going back.
Lena, what about you?
Yeah, I think everyone in my family is a pretty big fan. So it's sort of a a group reinforcement. When one of us goes, everyone else wants to go. So
yeah, I remember as a kid. I think I've now realized that I was semi-brainwashed as a kid, because I've gotten they sell those DVDs of those old Disney cartoons, like the Mickey cartoons and Donald and whatever. And I got them for a friend of mine who's 2 years old. I guess I'm trying to brainwash her. But
a friend that's 2 years old.
A friend's child.
Whatever. We're friend. My
We're
peeps.
friends.
Go
My
ahead.
peeps, yeah. You know how I roll in.
My peeps.
But anyway, I was watching these cartoons and I was thinking to myself, I remember this one, And I remember, it's watching the cartoons and watching. I remember on the Disney Channel when it used to be a pay channel, and they would have. I don't know what it was. They had like the live action Winnie the Pooh. Someone narrated. I don't know who that was. Someone narrated a guy live action, and it would it would go from live action to cartoon, the characters. And I just remember watching that as a kid, and it's these. I think it was these childhood things that set me up for it. And then later on in life, as I went to Disney World, it just. I had that magic trip. That one trip that kind of snapped it in for me. Did you guys have a magic trip, or was it always as far as you can remember?
I wouldn't say I went kicking and screaming, but I went as a 13-year-old, boy that wanted no part of it. And
Punk.
I was a punk back then, from the Bronx. But it didn't really kick into me because I didn't go again until my honeymoon, and I was 24 at the time. So I didn't go back again between 13 and 24. So it didn't click into me till that second trip.
Yeah, it's interesting. I also my magic trip when I was about 19 or 20 or so, something along those lines. That's when it really kicked. I mean, I'd always gone, at the family trip, but then I started to really get it, I guess. What about you, Annette?
I think I started brainwashing on my honeymoon. That's basically, my husband had never been to Disney World. And when we started talking about where to go, I was like, you've got to go. You have to go. So I started.
And you have to like it.
And actually, he's a bigger Disney nut than I am. And
oh, really?
So he's the one that comes and goes, when are we going again? Can we go now? When are we going? So, Mouse Fest and him not being there was really tough on him. But I think I think around that age 20, 21, when we got married, you go and you see it a different way. You don't see it as you did when you were a kid. You start to see the kids and their reactions and start to see a little bit of the magic happening. And for me, watching magic happen and the special little touches is what gets me. I love going back. I love watching the Dream Team do their stuff. Granting somebody's wish and doing something special for somebody when they're down there. That makes it for me. It's the magic.
Yeah, I think that's what separates it, from going to the beach or other vacation spots that I suppose normal people might go to. But it's just those little things. I just remember, I have the story my parents always told me, which is it's kind of funny. We went to Disney, we went to the Magic Kingdom, and we rode Pirates. And I'm Len and Newell. I'm sure you guys know, as if you rode as young children, I'm sure a certain object in the gift shop caught your eye very quickly, and that was those rifles.
Oh, I had 3 of them.
Oh, see, my parents wouldn't let me get one because they thought it was detrimental to my, I don't know.
Well, your development.
Development, yeah, exactly. Well, they finally caved in.
It doesn't seem to have affected me. Yeah, I loved the pistols.
Oh, they're great. But the story is one time they finally caved in and got me the rifle. So I got it. I was all excited. They bought it. And then the first thing I told them when I'm like, I have it like cocked, like the hammer back, and I'm like looking down the scope, and I'm like, let's go shoot Mickey Mouse. And now I realize why my parents were so hesitant to.
Dude, you've got issues. So many issues. Oh, that's funny. Oh, that's classic. I actually had so did you get yours at the Pirates of the Caribbean, or did you get them at Frontierland?
I got mine at Pirates of the Caribbean.
So that's where I got mine. Actually, the oldest Disney souvenir I have from the theme parks is a cannon, a small cannon from Pirates of the Caribbean. That it's spring-loaded. You pull back a little hammer on the bottom of the cannon, and remember the little paper caps from like cap guns?
Yep.
You'd place a small paper cap in there, and push down this lever, and the hammer would strike the cap, and the cannon would pretend to go off. And I still have it, so it's got to be 30 years old.
Wow, they still have cap. Do they still have cap guns these days?
I don't know. No, you don't have to be giving gunpowder to small children anymore. not like in our day. I was telling my daughter when we first drove to Florida, there were no seatbelts in the car.
Nope. Went the whole way from 95, from Connecticut all the way down to Florida, and there's no seatbelts.
Oh my God, seatbelts.
Plus, all the luggage would break your fall anyway,
Yeah, exactly. So I wasn't worried about that. But it's yeah, it was just it's just a different time. But I still have some souvenirs. All my souvenirs are from Pirates. I've always liked the ride. I mean, since back in the day. So yeah, that part's interesting. The stuff that I get from a lot of people on especially since we're writing that guidebook is how can you stand to go? Nothing there's real, or it's all fake. So that's kind of interesting.
I mean, nothing. You say when you say everything's fake or whatever. I mean, it's kind of like pro wrestling, and I hate to compare the two because they're probably polar opposites of each other. But I mean, it's that willingness to kind of give the benefit of the doubt and kind of like buy into it just for the sake of
the suspension of disbelief.
Exactly. There you go. Yeah. That's the eloquent way of saying it.
I think it's the only phrase I remember from Basic Instinct, but Sharon Stone explained it in the movie, and I had for some reason my attention was riveted through that entire film. And suspension of disbelief. Anyway, so
yeah. So I think that might have something to do with it.
Here's the thing that I always say about it is like to the average person living in Africa, people flying in shiny metal tubes 35,000 feet above uh, the ground is sort of odd to begin with,
Yeah.
or people going in shiny metal tubes below the ground to get to their place of work
There you go.
is strange. So I mean, it's all relative, right? On
Yeah.
what's real and what's not.
Absolutely. Annette, do you have any? I'm sure as a travel agent, you've experienced quite a number of these kinds of stories.
Well, you do, and I got to say that for most everybody over at MEI Mouse Fan Travel, I kind of polled everybody today just to see what would happen, and everybody kind of came up with the same thing. We're doing what we do because we love Disney too. We all love to go, and we love to experience the magic, and we like to share that with others and help them plan and get that back. But you hear it from everybody when they come back, especially those first timers that have never been. They come back and they go, I forgot about life for a week vacation.
Right.
You go into Fantasyland and you do. You kind of forget what's going on. I have to say, I went down 2 weeks after 9/11, and Disney was really the best place for my family to be at that point because we needed to pull away and just kind of go into Fantasyland for a little bit and get away from the reality of life for a little bit.
Absolutely. I mentioned earlier that for me, I had kind of liked the movies and the cartoons, all the the media first, and then that led me to the parks. Did you guys? Was that the same thing for you, or was it the parks first and then the movies and everything came second?
Movies first.
Movies first, Len.
This is going to be blasphemous. I really don't like the Disney cartoons. I've always been a huge fan of the Warner Brothers, 50s Bugs Bunny cartoons.
Bugs Bunny.
I think.
What about the
I
live
think,
action films?
Do what?
What about live action films?
The live action films are different. The live action films are pretty good.
Like
and
Herbie and Peach Dragon and all that.
No, I can't stand. No, I mean like the True Life Adventures. I can't stand like Herbie and.
What about 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea?
Yeah, I mean some of the kitschy films are okay, but like the Davy Crockett thing, never gotten into that. I mean, until Disney took over Pixar, I can't remember the last.
You must have loved. I think, Len, if I can channel you for a second, I would say that Len would like Swiss Family Robinson. That movie.
Yeah, I mean certain films were okay, but by and large, I thought especially the cartoons of the Warner Brothers from the 50s are much funnier than anything Disney produced in the same period, with the exception of possibly the Goofy series, where it's like Goofy does sports or where they got the narrator going over the those things are pretty funny. But Warner had the same sort of thing. But I think probably after Fantasia, I really lost interest in Disney film per se, and especially Mickey Mouse, because once Mickey reached a point where he was sort of a worldwide icon, it really limited what he could and couldn't do.
Yeah, he's got a status to maintain.
Right, so he couldn't. If you look at Mickey prior to Fantasia and Mickey post Fantasia, the things that he did, especially in the early films, are completely different. And whereas Bugs Bunny, for example, Bugs Bunny's always been pretty much the same character, and some of those cartoons I think are just hysterical.
Wow,
I think really it's constrained Disney quite a bit with Mickey. It's part of the reason why he's not as popular as Shrek. I mean, Shrek can do and say things that Mickey could never do or say.
That's heavy.
They leave it for Donald. I know, really. But I mean, going back to the criticism about Disney again, so we hang out with people who travel to Fiji and to Paris and to London, and they're all like, well, how can you stand going to Disney 4 or 5 times a year? And really, this is sort of what I think. I think Disney World is sort of a litmus test for people. It's sort of the glass is half full or the glass is half empty type of test. If you go to Disney World, and especially to Epcot and to World Showcase, you either come out of it saying, well, that's not really what the United Kingdom is like, and that's not really what Canada is like, or you come out of it saying, gee, I would like to visit there at some point. So it's either inspirational, I think, to a lot of people. Gee, wouldn't it be great to go to Norway? Yeah, I mean, I would love to go to Norway. Or, I guess if you're a little bit more cynical, and keep in mind, this is someone from the Unofficial Guide calling people cynical, so I'm actually, as I'm doing it, I'm actually backing away from the windows, because there are storm clouds gathering in the horizon in the background. What is that lightning? Odd. But, it's... I think it's more of a sort of a Rorschach test. You know, if you go to it and say it's all depressing and it's all fake and you can't find any inspiration in anything there, I think that's sort of sad. And I think we talked about this before about on something like Illuminations. Part of it is it's an achievement. You know, it's no one does it that well. I mean, and I think it's true. I mean, there's no other theme park in the United States or in fact in the world that approaches Disney's scope or quality. And there's a reason why they're number one, and people always want to go there. And I think there's something to that. It's substantial. I mean, is it on the same level as a Palladian Villa in Tuscany? Probably not, but still, it's an achievement.
Yeah, no, I wholeheartely agree. That's
especially at the part about the Palladian Villa.
Oh yeah. Annette, what the media for you or the parks? Which came first?
It was the parks. It was the parks because growing up, your parents paid for the Disney Channel. Mine did not. So
you had one of those hot boxes?
Basic channels.
Wow.
There wasn't a lot of exposure to that, and I have to say, just I don't know how many times I was told, "Oh, Annette, were you named after the Mickey Mouse Club?" Which
you're like, what?
Too young to have watched.
Who?
So it was more about the parks. It was more about the parks because that's where I'd had the family vacations that I had enjoyed. See, I was more impressed with the quality of the park because we would my family did a lot of theme parking, and you'd go to, say, don't want to slam anybody, but say a Busch Gardens or a King's Dominion, and I would walk around, even as a teenager, going, this is a dirty, filthy park.
Yeah. No,
they're not really the same.
Same standard. And there wasn't theming to the rides and that kind of thing. But yeah, not knowing all the stories as the kids have grown up, I've definitely picked back up onto the movies and that kind of stuff.
Just keep on making the family vacations over there and tell them that it's free, and they'll come.
Yeah.
Oh, well, they're kids. They're always free, aren't they?
Well, that's it for us today. If you want to find older episodes, read our show notes, or send us your comments, visit the Walt Disney World Today website at www.today.com. You can also email us at questions@www.today.com. For Len Testo, Mike Scopo, Mike Newell, and Annette Owens, I'm Matt Hodgberg. We'll see you on the next show.